There's a lot of different iconic people you think about when you think about real estate or any business for that matter. And people can be relevant for whatever reason, maybe because they have outstanding numbers. They sell so many homes, they do such a high dollar volume, or maybe it's philanthropic. They give back to the community, they try to help one another, which I find to be a more common thread in the real estate industry than that of the lending field. But I'll tell you, it's still not all that common that you find someone who meets both those categories. And today on Sit Down with Sam, our guest does just that. Very excited to be joined by none other than Tommy Choi, as we're going to talk about how he's come from where he started to where he is now, what's got him there, his opinion on where people are going, what we're doing, the ins and outs, and the whys of real estate. Well, there's never a shortage of me talking, and at this point in time, I think people would like to hear it in your own words. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about how you've gone from where you've come from to where we are right now, sitting here?
Yeah, I mean, one, thanks for having me. It's always great to sit down and have these conversations with you. You know, been in this business 2 decades now. And, you know, we have and I say we because, you know, Weinberg and Choi, it's 2 of us, my business partner and best friend, Josh Weinberg. We started, it's very unique because we started day one together as a team, as a partnership, and also we were our own boutique brokerage.
Right.
We got licensed right before, literally months before the state of Illinois changed their license law, and you know, you could not anymore obtain, back then it was called a broker's license. Mm-hmm. Today it's called a managing broker's license. So we were able to just kind of be our own brokerage and do our own things.
Right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate, which was a blessing and a curse because, you know, you don't know what you don't know.
Right. So
we just thought, yeah, this is brand new. We're building a new business. It should be difficult. Sprinkle in 2007, 8, 9, 10.
Right, you started this in 2007, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So we had, the entire housing market crashing, but we didn't know better, right? We just said, hey, we're a startup company. It's supposed to be tough. The curse was that we didn't really have people around us. You know, it was just us 2, right? So we didn't really have that think tank or, you know, anyone to really mastermind with. So Josh and I were kind of on an island doing this on our own. And the challenge in that was there's times where you start to think, okay, these challenges that we're facing building this business, they might be proprietary just to us. Maybe we're not cut out to do this, right? Oh boy. And so a huge, in my kind of timeline here, a big flag that was a white flag that was a big part of our trajectory and growth was being a part of the YPN, the Young Professionals Network at the Chicago Association of Realtors. That was the first time I remember walking into the very first ever event. It was at Theory. Remember Theory? Back in the day in Hubbard. Hot spot. And I met other, not just like younger age-wise, but like newer to the business.
Okay.
Realtors. And they were all sharing their struggles, and the struggles they had were the same as our struggles. And it was like, imagine being on a deserted island and one day walking and seeing like a group of people. You're like, you've been here the whole time?
Right.
And so that became our think tank and our mastermind group. And that's where we built so much camaraderie. People like Gregory Pekarsky, Aaron Mandel, you know, Matt Farrell, Nico Apostle, all these people, Lauren Mitrick, we came up together, right? Laracy. Mm-hmm. And so we really grasped to each other and built this community. And that was a huge part of our learning experience and come up that kept Weinberg Choi still going.
Now, you mentioned that was a white flag.
Yes.
How was that a white flag?
A white flag meaning opposed to a red flag, right? That was a positive mile marker for us that, you know, I say this all the time, and this is a big reason why I still continue to give back to this industry, especially to the YPN group. You know, later on, I would end up being the chair of the national YPN for all the country through the National Association of Realtors. And a big reason why, you know, was because I feel like I would have still accomplished what we've accomplished today, over $1 billion in sales volume, supporting over 2,000 clients, you know, and achieving the American dream, but probably 5 to 8 years from today.
Okay.
It really sped up and accelerated our growth.
Your involvement with these organizations actually propelled you further quicker.
100%. Because we were able to build community with other agents. Even though everyone was a part of a different brand, a different brokerage, we all came together to share and learn from each other. And that literally, it's like, so it's the same thing I always say, like why I think coaching is so important. It's like time traveling. It's like having a DeLorean. You get to learn 5 to 10 years of knowledge without having to age 5 to 10 years, right? Right there in that group of professionals locally in Chicago that I met, we got to learn from each other and accelerate each other's growth. And the cool part is now you look at the top 25, top 50 agents in the city. It's Weinberg Choi, Vesta, Larcy Group, right? It's all of us who came up together,
yeah,
right?
It's amazing.
And so that's the cool part to see that. And it's the cool part in this also is that I'm excited to see the new group eventually surpass us and become the new, top 25, right? My buddy Larcy doesn't probably want that and has something to say about that. Even Greg, right? I mean, they're both competitive people, but I know that'll happen one day, and I embrace that because I want to be able to. That's why I pour into those, the younger agents now because I just know I learn a lot from them as well. Especially when it comes to like the content marketing game and stuff like that. So that's been a big piece, and it's cool to just see us, where we're at right now, growing our team and growing our business. You look back and it's just, we used to work out of, do you remember the old Panera that was on Clybourne?
Oh yeah.
They had their own parking lot there. So we Josh and I would literally work out of there because they had the best free Wi-Fi, right? Because nothing is worse than like slow Wi-Fi. I'd rather sit in traffic than have slow Wi-Fi, right? And they had bottomless cups of coffee. So we could literally just pay the $1.50 for a small coffee and just have coffee for the whole day. And we would just make phone calls. We would write handwritten notes to people, letting people know what we're doing. And it's wild just to see us come from there to where we are now.
That's amazing. It's interesting to think about that too, because you're in Panera, you're handwriting notes. I guarantee that I'm willing to bet at some point in time you had to meet a client there. Like, I don't mean
100%.
you had them meet you there. I mean, someone saw what you were doing and approached you because
All the
you were involved with real estate. And of course, everyone's curious about
Yeah.
real estate, right?
Yeah.
Now things took a turn and went in a different direction in 2017.
Yeah.
So you started out, pulled your bootstraps up,
Yep.
formed your own business, learned everything. I love we didn't know what we didn't know. I still don't know
Yeah.
what I don't know, or even what I used to know sometimes. Right. So it's one of my favorite sayings. But in 2017, you decided to make a change. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Leading up to that, actually, it started in 2015. And there was like this unknown, small boutique brokerage that was, deemed themselves like a tech brokerage, prop tech company out of New York that was trying to come to Chicago, which was called Compass.
Yep.
And they turned out to be, one of the largest brokerages in the country now. And they had reached out to us to be one of their launching agents. We literally got to the 1 yard line. We went out to New York, went back and forth on it, and it just never happened for us. We just couldn't get over the final. And part of it was, Josh and I will admit to it, part of it was our ego. It was like, hey, this is Weinberg Choi Realty. Like, I don't know if we want to be someone else, right? And let alone at that time, this up and coming company, Compass. So we got close. We pulled back from it. But when you get that close and you have your whole team kind of like ready for change, you talked about it with your family and your friends, you're kind of like, maybe we should do something. And at that point, we said, you know what, let's focus. We had focused so much on just our team sales and growing our business that way. At that point, we decided, we have such an opportunity, so many people reaching out to us, asking us if there's an opportunity to join our team, our brokerage. Let's try and grow this. And so we looked at hiring literally a CEO, giving the keys to Weinberg Choi, saying, you run and grow us. We're going to focus on leading with revenue.
Okay.
And during that time, we met a gentleman named John Schumacher, who was a regional director for Keller Williams. And he kind of did a judo move on us, and we thought we were meeting with him because he was interested in this position. And then he flipped the tables on us. And, and he's like, hey, I can't give names, but someone very well is wanting to do this opportunity. And the opportunity was to launch a Keller Williams in Chicago. Right. And we're just like, I don't know, that's our thing. And next thing you know, I get a phone call, and it's Joe Zimmerman, and he was the number one team at Properties, second agent actually in the entire company. And he's just like, hey, I heard you met with my guy, Shoes. I'm going to do this. Let's talk, right? And so we met, and, next thing led to another. And it was 2017, we officially launched Keller Williams. At the time, it was Keller Williams Lincoln Park.
Right.
Since then, we've rebranded to One Chicago because we opened up 2 other locations, one in Lakeview and one in Bronzeville. And, we're almost 500 agents now, and just it's cool to see the growth in the brokerage as well.
And I think for those people who are watching, especially in the real estate industry and who are familiar with the Chicago industry, it was an interesting move. I remember when this happened because I'm 23 years of doing this. Yeah. I've kept my finger on the pulse, pretty close to it. It's kind of my job. And at that time, I mean, Keller Williams was defunct in Chicago.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was not a hot new, completely the opposite of what you would think of when you said Compass, right? Compass is this tech savvy, shiny sexy object. New thing. And Keller Williams, I was representing prior to that for Keller Williams office as their lender, right? There was their in-house lender, and they had got taken over by Coldwell Banker.
Yeah.
And at the time also not, no offense, just wasn't known as being this really sexy company.
Yeah.
It's because these are older
brands,
traditional brokerages. And I mentioned the Chicago market because I think a lot of times people don't realize how bbig a brand is outside of our city.
Yes.
Like I talk to people about this all the time with RE/MAX. People are like, RE/MAX, really?
Right.
I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I think it's like one of the largest in the world. I'm like, that's a thing. But with Keller Williams, was that an opportunity? Did you see this as a challenge, an opportunity? Because it wasn't like this shiny thing coming at you. How did that impact your decision? Or was it, tell me about that. Was it the partnerships?
It was, you're spot on. And legitimately my knee-jerk reaction was like, no, that's old school. When I think of KW, I kind of thought like burbs. Not that there's anything wrong with the burbs, but it's just didn't feel urban, city, to your point, coming pretty close to going over to Compass. It didn't feel like that shiny, Apple Store kind of object. And what it was for us was 2 things. One was the culture.
Okay.
We plugged in, got to meet people from across the country, and what I felt when I walked into Theory in 2011 and met all these young professionals in the Chicago Association of Realtors, what would become the YPN, I felt that feeling once again when I'm talking to some of these agents who took their time to just give a call, introduce themselves, and they were doing, like gentleman in Houston, Lance Loken, he's one of the top agents there, and he was doing 1,000 units. And he was on track to doing 2,000. I was just like, you mean your brokerage? Like, no, my team. I couldn't fathom that, right? So it really, people like that stretched the way I was thinking. Like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking way too small. And they literally popped the hood of their car and showed us how the engine runs. They were saying, this is what you do. Like, here, use this. We use this. Here's our assets. And it was that community, like the YPN was for me, where I'm like, wow, this is a think tank of people that are going to accelerate our growth. And it did. And then the second piece was who we got into business with. And I'm not talking about, KW Corporate in Austin, Texas. I'm talking about, Joe Zimmerman, right? Shoes, these people here who we just really believed in each other and the vision of what this could be, and really creating a brokerage that's just about people producing, building a business where, you're not an employee of the business, but you are the business owner, right? And so that was what really ultimately, dovetailed Josh and I on what our vision was for Weinberg Choi, and it made just complete sense to do that.
I love it. No, and you've done an amazing job. I will say, as a group, as a whole, individually, all those pieces put together, you've revitalized that brand and put Keller Williams back as a major player in our city, which is great. Nice work.
Yeah.
Seriously, it was really something else. And I have to admit, I'm a bit of a fanboy with Gary Keller when it comes to his writing. Read all of his books. Totally. I follow them like Game of Thrones. I just he's really, really smart, and I use it in my own industry, and I quote a lot of these books.
You know what? He's and I'll be the first to admit, there's a lot of KW agents that drink the Kool-Aid, right? That's like, that live, breathe it, and I'm not fully like one of those people, but when it comes to Gary Keller, he coaches his top 100 agents and teams in the entire country, right? And a couple 100,000 agents, and we've been lucky, Josh and I, to be a part of that group. And the wealth of knowledge he has, but more so, he is very obsessed with the everyday real estate agent and the information, trends, things like that he pours into us. That has been such a huge fuel for our growth as well. And I'll nerd out on a lot of the stuff that he has to say.
Well, so you mentioned coaching, right? So now you yourself are involved with coaching, which seems, based on this conversation, a natural progression. I had some questions lined up that you've actually just paved the way for them perfectly. So thank you.
Good.
Going through now with your involvement as yourself as a coach, and you're now with the Go Coaching Growth community. Why?
That's a great question, and I will say this. I had this aha moment, and it was during the pandemic, right? In 2020, I think a lot of us, right, we have a lot of time to ourselves and our family, which was great. But I had a lot of thinking time, and part of my journey, what I'm a very reflective person and very rooted in gratitude, as you are as well. And part of that reflection, I've realized, I'm the most qualified person to help the younger version of myself, right? Because if I could go back in time 10 years, I could literally give the answer key to my younger self, saying like, don't do this, do this. And with that, I felt a responsibility to being able to do that for other people, right? And it comes from a place of gratitude of just, I am super grateful for this industry, for the opportunities it provided me, my family, my friends, our team. And I'm just a person who, if I could literally wedge my foot in the door that 25-year-old me walked through almost 20 years ago, to be able to realize this opportunity, like, I want to be able to do that. And the coaching piece was a huge part of being able to do that, give back to it. And also, it was I call it a double deposit, right? It was a deposit I was making in the students that were investing into their business, but it was also deposited into me because I truly believe that the best class you can take is the one that you teach, right? Because you have to, and I'm a person who, if you can't talk the talk and walk the walk, I have zero interest in listening, right? And when whether it's coming off a coaching call, a master class, or even if I'm speaking on stage, if there's something that I spoke on and I know I've been like half-assing that part of the business, I hold myself accountable. The next day I'm going all in on it, right? And which ultimately fuels our business as well too. So it's really been like kind of a double deposit, fulfilling piece to my journey as well.
I love that, because you can't teach something to someone if you don't understand it.
100%.
Right, and then of course that pushes the boundaries on what you're learning and your own abilities, understandings, and how you use that in your day to day. Now, do you have a coach yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had many coaches, and the cool thing about this is every coach I've had, it's not because like, oh, like I hated this person after a while, I got burnt out. It's eventually I think there's people in your life, whether it's coaches or even mentors, that get you from point A to B. And that was the purpose. And now for you to go to B2C, you need to align with other people. And that's sometimes it can feel like, oh, well, you just use this person just to get to B. No, that when you have the right person aligned, they understand that they are that vessel to get you there, and that's it, right? It's like you look and see like when, NASA, or now I guess like SpaceX, or even Jeff Bezos, right? When they launch their rockets into the air,
Right.
those thrusters eventually fall off because they are not made to go into the part of the atmosphere that the spaceship's going, right? That's just part of the journey, right? And sometimes you have different coaches or people in your life that are those thrusters that are going to fall off. And it's not because you're better than them or you don't need them anymore, but they serve their purpose. And now it's on you to find those new people. But I think where the full circle moment comes, and this is part of that journey for me, is that you also owe it now to yourself and the universe that you be that thruster for someone when they need you.
Okay.
Right. And so I've had to answer your question. I've had many people, one of the best things I always tell people, even if they don't have, not everyone they're not financially ready to maybe invest in some sort of coaching. That doesn't mean you can't have people aligned to help you. Right. I always say, finding mentors are such a big piece. And I call my mentors my board of directors.
Okay.
And just like different aspects of my life, I've had different board of directors. When we were building our business, we surrounded ourselves, Josh and I, with other successful entrepreneurs and small business owners, right? Those were our mentors and our board of directors to help us navigate through challenges that were coming and ones that we didn't even see, right, in the distance. When I first found out I was going to be a dad, I aligned myself with other successful business owners who were fathers, right? So that I could also learn from them. That doesn't really cost you anything financially. All it costs you is your time and your attention, right? If you don't show up when you say you're going to show up and you're not paying attention and learning, that's the biggest middle finger to that other person you asked to meet with you, right? So you got to show up and you got to show out. But that kind of information is free from a financial standpoint. And the beauty of aligning yourself with mentors is that what happens is those board of directors, when they see that you're showing up and you're really coming to learn and better yourself and you're being respectful of their time, those are the people that will talk about you behind closed doors and put your name in front of opportunities that you don't even know exist. Right. And that's been another huge accelerator in our growth. So I always tell people, like, align yourself with mentors, right? A huge mentor for me in the residential real estate space actually was Millie Rosenblum.
Oh, wow. All right. Yeah. It's been around a while.
I was that curmudgeon, like, realtor who, like, when we first got licensed, it was in 2006, December. And, like, we had to pay the car dues, Chicago Association of Realtors. I'm like, what is this, $1,200? Like, this is so much money. Like, I get part of it, gives me MLS access, but what is the value in this, right?
Right.
And then I remember March, that following 2007, we got this magazine from the Chicago Realtors, and it was their top producers issue. I remember looking through this, and I saw the Platinum Award, the highest sales award that they give for volume and units. And there was like 12 people at the time. And I'm like, dang, these are the most successful agents, right? They're being recognized with this highest award. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make something of my $1,200. And I started cold calling all these agents. And I would call them, and I would say, hey, my name's Tommy Choi. You don't know who I am. I'm newly licensed, and I just received the Chicago Association of Realtors Top Producer Magazine. Congratulations on being a Platinum Award recipient. You're clearly one of the best agents in the city. Can I please steal 20 to 30 minutes of your time for coffee or for lunch? I just want to understand and learn what makes you successful so I can be that one day. I had literally, and I won't say names, but DM me and I'll tell you who. Now I'm joking.
I know. Did anyone say no?
3 people who straight up hung up on me. Okay.
I thought that just happened to me.
2 people who, like, literally, they were so confused and they kept saying, I'm not hiring right now. Just send me your resume though. Just send, and I'll hold it on it. And I'm like, no. I just want to meet with you. Yeah. Just send me your resume. I was just like, okay, right. Handful of people are like, yeah, of course. Just shoot me an email and we can figure out a time. Never heard back from them. And one person, literally while on the phone, said, okay, Thursday, 1:00. And it was Millie. And it was 30-minute coffee that ended up being 3 hours. And she just told me everything. Her story, her journey, what I needed to do. And she is the reason why I got involved and eventually became the president of the Chicago Association of Realtors, because she was president of Chicago Association of Realtors. And she said, like, you got to get involved because you got to meet all the players.
Right.
You need to meet other agents. I didn't understand why. Then she also told me, go to every broker open you can on Tuesdays. Learn the product, learn the areas, meet the agents. And I did it, and it worked, right? And so she's someone, and she's still obviously someone very close to me, and we still, we'll have lunch a couple times a year and lean into each other. And it's great because now sometimes she'll ask me for advice on certain stuff, and I can share that with her. But it's so important, and there's almost 19,000 of us in the city of Chicago, real estate agents. I always tell people, just reach out to someone, ask, right? Closed mouths don't get fed. You got to ask people for their time, but be super respectful and don't just casually be like, hey, I'd love to just pick your brain.
Oh, that's funny. No. I hate that saying.
Yes.
Pick your brain. It immediately shows
be
no prep.
Be specific. Yeah. What do you want to learn? What time? How much time is it going to take? And just show up, right? And that's when I'm telling you, the people that do that for me, that 30 minutes I allot them to, I will literally change everything I have afterwards just to keep the conversation going, right? Because people are engaged.
I have some people, actually some people we both know that I always book very long blocks of time.
Yeah.
Mo.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Always Mo. We have hours of conversation.
Oh yeah.
And it used to be, we would start this block of thinking, being very like, okay, we're gonna bang this out in 20 minutes. We've got an agenda. We know what we're doing. What we're doing. And then 2 hours in, we're just like, oh, I gotta go. I know I don't want to go. And it's just interesting because when that energy is going back and forth, you feel it, and when you make that connection, you find your people. It's interesting. I wonder how many of those people who hung up on you are looking, still involved. I guess it was a while ago. They might still be active.
I'll say about 80% of those people are still in the business.
Really?
A couple of the people, they actually I call them out on it, just very in jest, and
sure.
they're like, oh my gosh, if I did that, I'm sorry, I must have been in a bad place. We're all friends now, and
That's good.
We can laugh about it. But
I love it. So within that, and going through, the difference between, it seems like a mentor and a coach, there's a financial consideration there, right? Although it could be said that your attention is your most valuable form of currency.
Yeah.
They say it's time, and then I read that it was your attention, because time without attention is not as meaningful.
It's true.
So I like that. That resonated with me. So when you're going through mentorship, reach out, call these people, talk to them, have conversations with your peers. I will say that's something that I've always really admired about the real estate community.
Yeah.
We don't really have that in the lending side, where it's a little bit more cutthroat.
Totally.
That's just how it is. We're competitors.
Dog eat dog.
Some colleagues and people, even people within your own company, will treat you that way. Where it's just like, it's very interesting. I've never been that way. I've always been very much open. I'm a big believer of, and I've heard you say this before, the abundance mindset, right? Even in a competitive field like lending. Yeah. Now, I'm not giving my secrets away on everything, but at the same time, sometimes I will share some information just to try and keep me on my toes. Because if you get too comfortable, then that doesn't do you any good either.
Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit. You have a very strong and growing presence through social media. One of the things I love about our business is that there's not one way to do this.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many different people who succeed in different ways, whether they're people who use social media, they're people who don't use social media, both very successful.
Yep.
But you've noticeably have this pivot, you've been consistent, you're very good at it. Do you think social media has been an important factor in your real estate career Is it help you more in coaching? Both? Like, why the focus on social media, and why do you feel that it's important?
Love that question. Content marketing is super important. You need to have right now. I always tell people, like, I am what Weinberg Choi, our team is. We are a modern real estate team that practices a modern real estate process.
Right.
What that means is we focus on the offline traditional stuff, right? Phone calls, getting face to face with people, throwing events, right? But then we also blend the online digital, right?
Okay.
Content marketing via social media, sometimes paid content strategies. In order to win and survive and thrive in any market, to be recession proof, you have to be both.
Right.
And there's a challenge because I feel like I'm starting to see more of that now. But in the past, it was either you were all in on this side, offline traditional, or all in on online digital. And it was never a combination of both, right? We have the old schoolers who just pound the phones, right? FISBOs, expireds, right? Zillow leads, whatever. And it's great, right?
Works for them, right?
It works for them. They kill it. Door knocking, right? And then other people who are just like hide behind a keyboard and like terrified to actually have a conversation, but they're just killing it on content marketing, right? I call those my like the 23-year-old guru life coaches right now that are online, like selling some sort of course, because they like killed it like 1 year in 2021 in real estate. But the ones to really be recession proof, you have to do both. And why I'm such a big believer, and I've been all in for the last 7 years now on content media, organic content media, is, leverage. That's a word that gets thrown out in both sides of our industry, right?
Oh, yeah.
LOs and real estate agents. Sometimes where I'm like, do you know what that means? And I'm not trying to be a dick or a jerk, but I'm just like, it gets thrown around. It's such a buzzword. To me, right, there's 4 forms of leverage. There's people, right? I can hire an assistant, a showing agent, a buyer's agent to buy back more time and have more leverage, right? There's capital, right? I can invest my money into things to provide me more leverage as well, right? That's where a lot of people stop. They think people and they think cash. But there's other 2 powerful forms of leverage, and that is content marketing, social media, and technology, okay? Content media, when you put out content, it will always work for you, right? With people, they get sick, right?
For sure.
They want to raise sometimes, right? They just like, oh, my alarm didn't go off, sorry, right? Happens. That never happens with content.
Right.
Never
Content's
happens
consistent.
with technology, right? And the key about content is that it compounds. The piece of content works 24 hours, 7 days a week, and continually grows your audience. A piece of content from like 2 years ago, I still get followers from, right? So that's like the ultimate form of leverage. While I'm sleeping, my brand, my name, my likeness, my image is being shot out there, right? And it's cheap because it's free, right? Meta doesn't cost me to post, right? Organically, at least, right?
Sure.
That has been, I think, such a big piece of our growth. And one thing that I think a lot of people, they don't, I don't want to say they don't understand, they just overlook. When they go, they're like, okay, I want to create content too, and I'm going to do talking head videos and whatever. I always tell them, hey, they think it's just for like getting new business, new opportunities. Yes, but also it's very hard, okay? You have to really be all in on it and be super consistent with it to see those new opportunities come. And when they come, they come. But what I tell people not to sleep on is that it's a great way to close your back door, retention on your existing database. Because that is the ultimate touch when you are following all of your database, people, past clients, just people you know, parents at schools, right? People that you play sports with or clubs, and they see your content consistently. you are literally gaining mind share.
Right.
It's like I always see when I'm driving down the street, I always see like a Coca-Cola truck, right, making a delivery. I see Coca-Cola billboards. Does that make me thirsty and I want to run out and buy a Coke? No. But guess what? When I sit down for lunch at Summer House and the server's like, can I get you a drink? The first thing I think of is, yeah, I'll have a Diet Coke.
Right.
That's mind share. Putting yourself out there via digital content, whether it's short form video or long form video on YouTube, even written content. I always tell people, don't sleep on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been such a big source of that mind share for me. It just continually keeps you top of mind, and you eventually will avoid seeing them posting a video of them holding keys standing next to a different realtor, right? Because you are staying top of mind. It's a great way to engage, right, with people. You have to be proactive with it. And so that's been a huge part of our journey, being in it. But it's we talked about this offline. It's not just a financial investment, right? Sometimes when you really want to level up and you get like geniuses like Amo Ismail involved, but it's also a time investment,
right,
where you really have to be all in on this, because you have to be consistent in time blocking and batching and creating content and thinking about that, right? So sometimes it will take you away from what we call the offline traditional money making activities, right? Phone calls, getting face to face with people, but you have to be really dialed in on it.
I like the description, because when you said modern, I could think of that as relevant as well, right? Being relevant. It is hard, because it's hard enough to get people to be comfortable in front of a camera and try to do things and to sit and talk just like we're talking right now, especially when you start to combine that with the financial investment and the investment in the time. And let's not forget the ego, right?
Yeah.
We're in an industry that definitely there's sales involved. Sales and ego can tend to travel, in the same car. And it's interesting, because you spend all this time. I've had a few different marketing directors in my team that I've worked with, and I've said it more than a few times where I said, well, they're like, I don't know why this video is just not performing very well. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, at some point I said, maybe we're just not that interesting. I'm like, I said, that's a hard thing to accept, but it's very true. You put yourself out there, and if it doesn't have the reaction that you thought it would, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's like, it's almost like a comedian who steps on the stage and no one laughs.
Right.
And it's like, oh wow, I'm not funny, and it's very difficult. For me on that side, it was interesting, because I had to learn, and it took a really long time to learn exactly what you just said. And I love that you brought this up, that opportunity to work towards your brand recognition in the past, mm-hmm. because that's, I think, one of the toughest parts of marketing. People put billboards up. It's not like people don't just call you like, hey, I saw your billboard. I just want to call you for your services.
Will you list my house?
Right. Yeah. It's just not exactly how it works. But I think when people get involved with social media, that's exactly what they're expecting. It's what I was expecting. I'm going to put these videos out. I'm going to tell someone, you don't have to put 20% down. And immediately the leads flood through the door. Yeah. And then it doesn't happen. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well, I'm wasting my time.
Yeah.
And I went down that for I've stayed consistent with it for years. And it was hard to adjust and to understand that, because you do take yourself away from money making activities. Insert ego as I watch. I'm getting this branding, which is not so measurable. Yeah. But then the leaderboard starts to drop. My production's dropping. All of a sudden, I'm not producing the same amount of business. And then in my mind, panic alarms go off. Oh, maybe you're not relevant. Maybe you're not doing this right. You're here to make money. How is this going? And all these things, they fight against it. So it's really hard to keep clear. So I love the fact that you shared about how that is a great way to stay relevant and in touch with the people you've worked with.
I love what you brought up, because someone listening and watching this, they're feeling the same exact thing. I've been all in for the last 12 months, and I'm seeing my production go down because I've stopped focusing on lead gen or yada, yada, yada.
Not door knocking.
Right. What I will tell those people, because I felt the same way too, one, that's part of the come up, right? Mm-hmm. Is feeling those struggles in it. And for a lot of people, that's when they'll hit the eject button and just bail right on it. And I'm not saying that's the wrong thing. No. However, what I will tell you is, and this is why it's so important to blend and be that modern real estate agent, because a lot of the times those people, they've gone completely online digital focused and
Right.
started neglecting that. You, even if time is going a little bit heavier on the online digital, you still have to erase and replace the offline traditional. And why I share that with you, because I was at that point and I was getting like a couple hundred views on videos, and I was super frustrated because you start to measure on those vanity metrics, which I'll be the first to say, don't measure on that. That has zero, that's just a shiny thing, and follower count is a shiny thing. The real engagement happens, and you don't know it until you go back to the offline traditional. When I started to make those phone calls to my database, past clients, literally the first thing out of their mouth was, oh my gosh, I love the videos you're putting out.
Right.
And I literally was like, excuse me? Like, you're talking to your realtor right now. My videos? And like, yeah, like I love what you're doing. Like, you're putting out educational content on the process, and you're putting us on game on things to do in Chicago. And it literally was such an ego boost in a good way, because it helped build confidence.
Right.
And was like, dang, these people are paying attention. They literally are. It might not show up in the likes or the comments or the views, but there's a lot of lurkers, I call them, right? The people that like will partake in watching, but they never want to leave like a breadcrumb that they were socially watching. They don't want to like or comment.
Right.
It's not because they're haters. They just don't want to be a part of it. There's so many people that are paying attention that don't show up in that digital footprint metric. You would not know unless you go back to the offline traditional and start making those calls.
Right.
When I started to get that positive feedback, I was super just recharged and was just like, yes, this is why I do this. And I went back all in. I'll even share with whoever's listening here, just because, it's you here. I've invested almost, 6 figures into coaches, masterminds around content, right? Video and also written content. And
I've exceeded 6 figures at this point.
Totally, right? And I'll share with whoever's listening, to this, if it helps them on their journey. What really helped me was understanding there's really 3 pillars of content, right? You can focus on. It's entertaining, right? Content, inspirational content, and then educational content. You're going to fall in one of those 3 buckets.
Right.
Majority of my colleagues on the agent space, they think they're educating, but really what they're doing is they're being entertaining, right? They're doing trending stuff. They're chasing virality, right? And trying to go viral on their videos. And that's okay if that's your thing, right? But that's, if you're frustrated at like, why am I only getting realtors to follow me? I'm not seeing much like business opportunities come in, is your audience finds your content entertaining is your colleagues, right? So you're making it for that audience. So you're actually successful in it, but you're not focusing on the right people. Then I always tell people like that are trying to be inspiring, you need to have a very large engaged audience for the inspiration to hit, right? That's why the Gary V's, the Tony Robbins of the world, they kill it, right? They can talk about something mindset and not as tactical, and they'll get people like, oh my gosh, this changed my life, right? You might not be there yet if you don't have that audience, right? I always say lead in with education, because education is value.
For sure.
And like I said earlier, you are the most qualified person to help your younger self. So whether it's focusing on what it's like to buy a home, and sometimes what happens, because I was this person, I'd be like, I don't want to talk about home inspection. Every single person knows what a home inspection is.
Right.
Guess what? No, not everyone
They
does.
don't.
You're on. You might be on chapter 19. They're on like page 1,
Right.
right, of chapter 1. The most basic stuff. That's what I mean by like help your younger version, your younger self. The most basic educational content will be the ultimate value that you can deposit into your audience. That's when they hit that follow button, because they think like, dang, right? Marketing is being known, liked, and trusted before and after, right? People know you. So you really have to put out there, you know, as much educational content as you can, because that's when people will start to trust you as a subject matter expert, right? And then when the time comes or they're looking, right, to buy or sell, the first person they're going to start to think about is the person they follow, and they watch all these videos of why they need to, like, you know, declutter their home, or why they should avoid, you know, painting bold colors, or
Right.
like where to, like, you know, make updates in your home. That kind of stuff really helps, right? I'll even give you another a tactic to anyone that's watching. We all have, anytime we talk on the phone or even text, right, with our clients during a negotiation, or maybe during a listing process, or even with agents during a negotiation, I guarantee you, after you hang up or after you receive that text back, just take time and reflect on that moment and be like, man, what's something I just learned from here?
Right.
Because I am telling you, that is a piece of content that a consumer would love to know.
Yep.
Right? Like, how did I just handle this hard negotiation with this agent? How did I handle where my buyer wants the seller to pay all my closing costs and we're up against 20 different offers? That kind of information, that's the content you're looking for, right?
Yeah. How did I answer this question? It's sitting right there in front of you, and you are the expert because you just did it. So that means
100%.
one of the most important aspects is that it will be genuine,
Yes.
right? You're going to come across genuine in what you're delivering because it's a real situation. You actually handled it, and people see that. I think people pick up on that, and that's why it's hard to go viral or do something when you're trying to be someone you're not, or to say something
100%.
that because you think it's going to be popular.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And when you can continue to, one, look past the vanity metrics and continue to just educate, what eventually you're leading to get to in within your audience, the mind share is, gosh, this, like, guy that I follow, he literally just gives all this free information out there, and they're going to come to a point when they're going to think like, man, his free content, his free education, his free information, his free stuff is way better than the person I just hired to represent me.
Right.
I need to work with this person. And that's not even theory. That's like legitimately, I get DMs like, hey, I just listed with this person. It's not been working out. Our listing agreement's going to end. I follow you. I'd love to, like, talk to you about what that could look like, right? So, like, put it all out there. Like, there's no gatekeeping, like, information. Put it out there. And the other thing, too, is people that fear, like, well, I don't want this agent to pick up on my tips. It's a Harvard study that shows 90% of people, they won't even execute or apply anything that they learn.
They're never going to do. You could give them the keys to the castle. They won't put it in the door.
100%.
Yeah.
So just put it out there for the people you're trying to reach, and those people will find you, and that's when the magic starts to happen, right?
I love it. And you obviously have, taken so much from your experiences, and I mean, we could talk for hours and hours. There's so many different things that I could ask you, but maybe before, parting ways today, share, if there's something you could share, maybe not necessarily with your younger self, right? Because I was thinking about that. We talked about Millie, your first mentor. Let's think about now, relevance, right? Modern. What is something you think would be useful that you would like to share with someone who's thinking about either they're in real estate or they're thinking about getting into real estate? Maybe they've been into it for years. Just something you could share that you think would maybe help some of the people, something, as things have helped you.
I love that question. I will say, and I'll get a little fluffy here and throw out that mindset.
We like
stuff,
fluffy.
okay?
Let's do it. Yeah, I like it.
A lot of us in the real estate industry, our mindset, the cadence is ready, aim, fire. Okay. And what happens is, majority of people get stuck on the aim part and they never pull the trigger. I'm gonna make content, right? I'm gonna do videos. I'm gonna become the next, like, Alex Hormozy. I'm just gonna first write all this stuff down and get at least 60 days worth of content, then blah blah blah, and you never shoot it, right?
Right.
I'm gonna start a podcast, right? Let me just think of the first 12 guests and blah blah blah. You never get in a room like this and actually execute it. What's been the game changer, and for me that leveled me up, was changing that framework to ready, fire, aim. Okay? Get ready, figure out what you want to do, and just do it. Build the airplane in the air. Okay? And then when you have results, whether it was successful or you fall on your face, I've fallen on my face more than I've succeeded.
Right.
Now you get to aim. Now you get to make adjustments. What went wrong? Okay, let's never do that again. What went right? Let's go all in on that. And then you start again. Ready, fire, aim. Just do it, right? Build the airplane in the air.
It worked for Nike, right?
It worked for them.
Just do it. I love it. Thank you for joining us today. If someone wants to find you, I mean, it's not hard, obviously, but just to stay within structure here, why don't you share how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, Instagram's the best way. Shoot me a DM. It's my first name, middle name, last name. Tommy Joo, Joo, Choi, Choi.
Tommy with a Y.
Tommy with a Y.
All right.
But here's the thing. I've done this so well that you could misspell my name, and I'm telling you, I will rank first in the results.
We'll have to have you back to hear more about that. Yeah. And thanks for coming out today. I really do appreciate your time.
It's an honor and a
Thank
pleasure.
you very
I
much.
appreciate you.
Appreciate it.